Hey guys, what's up? In this video, we're going to talk about Resident Evil Revelations 2, Episode 1. This is not a playthrough video, this is just a quick impressions video from my time with it. I've completed the campaign portion of the episode on the default difficulty, and I did one raid round so far. And initially, I wasn't expecting like a big graphical powerhouse. I figured it was probably going to be like a step up visually from Revelation, the original Resident Evil Revelations HD remaster. And I was right. The game doesn't look bad, but for all intents and purposes, the game could look better. I will say, I think personally the lighting system's pretty cool, and the texture work is passable. It's not going to blow your mind or anything, but the game looks good. But it's not anything to show off the power of next gen console or current gen consoles or your PC or anything like that. The Claire model I thought was kind of strange at first, but then after I seen her and kind of grew accustomed to how she looked, she didn't seem as strange to me. Now this game takes place after Resident Evil 5, and Resident Evil Degeneration would have been the last time we seen Claire, and chronologically that took place in November of 2005. And this game takes place in 2011. So 6 years have passed in the Resident Evil universe since we last saw Claire. So, I mean, the changes to her character model are understandable. She's 6 years older. Um, but I don't know. There's just parts where she looks weird. Um, when she's still, she looks okay. But the opening cutscene kind of has some wonky animations, which is something I want to talk about. The animations are pretty much again, they're serviceable, but some of them are kind of junky. You can see like they slide models into place to finish the animation. Nothing's real dynamic or anything like that. And some of the facial animations are kind of, but all in all, the argument I'm sure can be made that it's a $20 game if you buy the season pass digitally for all 4 episodes. So I mean, what do you expect? But at the same time, though, if you buy the disc copy in March, I think it's coming out for the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4, and I don't know if it's coming out for last gen or not. That's $40, and you get a couple DLC items that aren't going to be released till later on, which I don't know if I'd pay $40 for this. Um, each episode, or each half of the episode, took me roughly 45 minutes, give or take a few minutes, but so that's an hour and a half, and if each episode is to be that length or take about that long, then you're looking at about 6 hours a game to finish all 4 episodes. Now, I mean, that's not to say that episode 2 won't be longer or something like that, just kind of spitballing and speculating for the time being. And everybody's time in the game will be different for their first playthrough. There is plenty of collectibles to encourage replayability. In the first episode, there's tower icons you can shoot, much like the BSAA emblems from previous games or the previous 2 games. And there's these weird little things that Moira can shine her flashlight on, some kind of like weird glowy wall art thing. And then there's some kind of weird bug that you can collect in Barry's section that I didn't even accidentally get one, so I'm not real sure what that is. So I'm gonna have to go back through and see what that's about. But when you get down to the meat and potatoes of the game, is it fun? Yes, it's fun. It's spooky and kind of uh, more tensiony than previous main entries in the Resident Evil franchise. It's got that feeling like the old games. Very much, if you played the first Revelations, you're going to be very much at home with this game. It's not that dissimilar as far as the atmosphere and the mood go. There was a couple more sections where they threw a few more enemies at you than what I remember having happen in the previous Revelations. So there was a couple segments that kind of felt like that had that same feeling as 4, 5, and 6, where you had a couple moments where you had to clear out a pretty sizable quantity of enemies. But it wasn't anything that's unbearable. Now, I will say one thing that struck me as cool that they brought back from the original Resident Evil is both Claire and Barry are very capable of defending themselves, but Claire is a little bit more squishy than Barry, or at least seemed that way to me. Barry could take a little bit more punishment, um, whereas Claire, a couple good hits from an enemy generally kind of put her at low health, and it seemed like Barry took 3 or 4 before the red started creeping in from the corners of the screen. Also, Barry comes right off the bat with his Magnum, a Samurai Edge, and an assault rifle, whereas Clary, when you start, you have nothing. You eventually find a knife, and you get a uh, pistol and a shotgun, double barrel shotgun. So you eventually have to you'll find weapons for her, but Barry comes, he's pretty much locked and loaded from the get-go. Uh, most of Claire's enemies are what they call the Afflicted. They're kind of like these crazy inmates that have begun to mutate into something we're not real sure what yet. There's a couple hints here and there through documents that you find that there was some experimentation going on in this facility, and there is something kind of weird going on there. There's bracelets on Claire and Moira when they wake up that you find out reads their like stress levels. If it's green, they're calm. If it's yellow, they're no. If it's orange, they're nervous. If it's blinking red, they're fearful, and if it's solid red, then they're beginning to mutate and they're to be put down immediately. Not so much Moira and Claire, but the afflicted that you come across from the notes. And then there's this guy that's kind of like the I can't remember his name, but if you played Resident Evil 4, you'll know who I'm talking about. Remember the blind guy in Resident Evil 4 with the big like Wolverine claws on his hand, and he had the hood over his head? You could shoot the bell, and it would distract him. There's a couple like bigger enemies in Claire's part of the episode that kind of reminded me of those guys. Man, I wish I could remember what they were called, but um, that's pretty much the 2 enemies you'll come across. Just your general afflicted, and then your these bigger dudes that I'm not sure what they're called yet. They take obviously a little bit more punishment, or no, they're carrying an axe, so never mind about the Wolvie claws. They take a little bit more punishment. There is some environmental traps that once you activate, you can use to your advantage, but if those traps hit you, it is instant death. So watch out for that. But Claire's campaign, you just kind of are working on escaping, and it leaves you with a little bit of a cliffhanger. Obviously, I'm not going to go into spoiler territory with this. And then you switch over to Barry's campaign, which is where I encountered my first few glitches, as you can see by these bugs that are bugging out on the rocks there. Crabs on score. I don't know what the fuck those are. But Barry's campaign, for the most part, plays pretty similar, other than your starting weapons. Where the big difference in the 2 campaigns come from is the side characters. You have Moira Burton with Claire, and she doesn't use firearms. They don't elaborate why, other than a quick comment that something happened that traumatized her. She doesn't like firearms, and she doesn't like edged weapons or sharp weapons. She has a flashlight that she can use to blind enemies and find hidden items in the environment. And she finds a crowbar, which she can use to melee enemies and pry boards off of doors to get to the next room in the area. Uh, with Barry, you come across a 9-year-old girl named Natalia, who, once she convinces him to let her go with him, then she doesn't have a flashlight, but she can. She has like this weird kind of like uh, power or something, perception ability, where when crouched, she can sense the auras of enemies, and she As long as she doesn't cross their line of sight, she can sneak past them a lot quieter, and she can point out hidden items in the environment, and also she can crawl through little holes in the wall and stuff like that. She's not real. She doesn't have a lot of defense to her. She can't use a weapon other than a brick so far that she can either bludgeon enemies with or break locks, or she can throw it and hit an enemy. So she can't really defend herself too much. But I mean, she's 9. Barry, on the other hand, like I said, he seems to be a little bit tankier than Claire. You have your 3 guns right off the bat. I didn't feel like ammo was really an issue with Barry like I did with Claire. Claire's campaign felt a little bit more survival horror-ish, whereas Barry's felt a little bit more, I'm not too concerned with getting my ass handed to me. Now, the enemies are different. And for the most part, you kind of go through the same path that Claire did, or Claire and Moira, except you have to undo what they did. Claire and Moira had to turn the power on so they could get out of the room or get out of the facility, whereas now the traps are activated. You have to go through and disable the power so you can get past the traps. Hopefully that's not a trend for the next 3 episodes, because I don't want to see the environment completely reused. Now, you don't travel exactly the same path. Eventually it branches off. You go through a forest area, but this is where the major difference is the enemies. You fight what are called the Rotten, which are these weird zombie guys I'm popping in the head here. There's not a lot of backstory to them yet, other than they're just kind of zombie-like, but they're a little bit faster than zombies. They look like zombies, but they're more akin to like the um, Ganados and the uh, Javo. And I forget what they call them guys in Resident Evil 5. I keep wanting to say the Majini. Brain farting a lot this morning. I don't know why. I must not have had enough coffee. But it feels pretty much the same as far as the enemies, or the baseline enemies go. They're not that different from the Afflicted, other than they just look different. Now, you do eventually come across these guys that kind of look like a combination of the Ouroboros monsters from, or boss monsters from Resident Evil 5, and the Ooze from the previous Revelations game. And they're a little bit different to take out. You have to shoot them a couple times, and they will like grow this weird little pustule thing, and then you shoot that, and that's how you can take them out. Which is kind of why they reminded me of the Ouroboros monsters, which that's even kind of mentioned by Barry. I guess that's a minor spoiler. Sorry. Um, but probably the most impressive part of the campaign so far is you go through a wooded area with Barry and Natalia, which out of all the environments I thought was cool because there was like some spotlights kind of shining through the trees, and it was dark, and you had to use Barry's little flashlight to kind of see where you were going, and that area was a little bit tense because you couldn't really see real well, and even Natalia's like little perception ability was kind of spotty through there because some of the enemies kind of jumped out at you. But it was that segment I think was probably the best well done outside of the first few opening segments of Claire's. Overall, the episode isn't bad. I enjoyed it. I don't have any regrets about. I bought the season pass on PC, and then I was going to play it co-op with a friend of mine on the PlayStation. So I ended up buying the first episode on the PlayStation 3. And because I'm an idiot and didn't do a lot of research into the game, I only read what was on the store listing, and the store listing said 1 to 2 players. But when they say that it's 1 to 2 players, they don't mean online. It means fuck you. If you're not playing it on the couch with your buddies, you're not playing it co-op. The PC has no co-op whatsoever. It doesn't even have the split screen option. So you're shit out of luck there if you want to play co-op with anybody on the PC. And apparently there's going to be online co-op coming in March for the raid mode, but I still think that having an online element for the campaign would add a certain degree of depth and replayability to it, especially since you wouldn't be able to switch between the characters so freely. You'd be reliant on more team interaction between you and whoever you're playing with. So hopefully they change their mind and do that, because that was something that I sorely missed from Resident Evil 5 and 6. And I know that's kind of like a divisive thing, but I really did enjoy the co-op in Resident Evil 5 and 6, playing it with a real breathing human being. The quality of those games notwithstanding. Now, um, I did read there was a lot of issues with certain people having problems with stuttering and frame drops and everything like that on PC, on what is otherwise rigs that should be able to run this game without any problem. I mean, really, this game, it's the MNT framework that just about every Capcom game up until this point has used, and there's no reason why a decent PC shouldn't run it well. I didn't have any frame drops. The only time I noticed any stuttering was area transitions when you open a door. Um, Not like from room to room, but from like map to map. There's, if you recall from like Resident Evil 5 and 6, or even 4, like you reach that door where you have to hit like circle or whatever if you're playing on PlayStation, or B on the Xbox. And then it transitions to the next area and there's like a loading screen or whatever. That's the only time I noticed any jutters or stalls, but it wasn't anything that it didn't interfere with the gameplay because there was nothing going on. And I didn't have any frame drops during actual gameplay. I read horror stories where people weren't even able to kill the first two enemies in the game because of frame issues on the PC. Also, I don't know about performance issues with last gen consoles. I haven't played the PlayStation 3 version yet. I do plan on giving it a shot to see how it holds up. Other than the fact that I know that the last gen versions are locked at 30 frames and the current gen versions are locked at 60. Well, they're supposed to be. Apparently, the PlayStation 4 suffers from some bad drops in frames, especially in the aforementioned forest scene that Barry and Natalia go through. Um, Visually, I guess from what I've been reading, the Xbox One, the PlayStation 4, and the PC are basically on par. There's nothing that really sets the PC version above those two versions other than higher quality shadows, if you have the horsepower to run them, obviously. But textures and things of that like are roughly the same. Now, I'm not going to really recommend one version over the other because so far my time is limited to the PC version, and really it all depends on you, your taste, and what platforms you own. So there's that. There's not much in the way of extra modes right now. We have the raid mode, which you can see here is quite. It's a little bit different from the raid mode in the first Revelations. You kind of start out in this room with this matrixy looking avatar thing, and then you run up to this mannequin here, and you can pick what you want your skin to be. You got Claire, Barry, Moira, Hunk. If you pre-ordered some deluxe edition, I think you get Wesker, and then there's Gina, who is a character from the beginning of the game that you come across. So we're gonna run with Gina just because she looks different than holy boobs, Jesus. um, just because it's a different model from Barry and Claire that we've had in the previous segments of this video. The raid mode, if you played the raid mode in Revelation, the previous Revelations game, it's basically exactly the same. You know what to expect. There's not a lot of surprises. Um, just they pick a map, you throw some areas, and or they throw some enemies at you, and you survive. You can customize a little bit more than you could in Revelations. You have gestures that you can use, I imagine, for online co-op when it becomes available. Capcom. Uh, you can customize your weapons with certain, with the parts like you could find in the first game. However, you can't just like you got to put a little bit more thought into what modifications you want to put onto a weapon because you can't just throw them on there and take them off all willy-nilly. Like, if you want to remove the modifications from a weapon, you have to destroy the weapon, which I don't know if I'm crazy on that idea or not. We'll see how it goes, but that I thought was kind of a strange addition. But I guess at the same time, it makes you have to think a little bit more about how you want to handle the situation and whether or not you want to put that mod on that particular weapon. Immediately, I got a upgraded handgun that is the same handgun that I started this. This is my first raid play right here, and the handgun that I'm using, I got a level 4 version of, which is obviously going to be better than my currently equipped handgun. But like an idiot, not knowing that you had to destroy the weapon to remove the modifications, I put one modification on the handgun that I'm using here. I guess in that circumstance it's not a big deal because I would be destroying the weapon and putting the modification onto a better version of that weapon. But if you have, let's say you have a Magnum and a shotgun, and you want to take a modification off that shotgun and put it onto the Magnum, then I guess you're either stuck with your choice or you got to lose your shotgun. So just a heads up there. Maybe plan your weapon mods out a little bit more and see where that. We'll see how that system pans out as more options are unlocked. For the most part, the raid mode is what it is. I had said in my previous Revelations video that I prefer the raid mode over the mercenaries. I don't have anything personally against mercenaries. I like the mode, but the raid mode, I like that it's just more of kind of surviving without having to worry about the time limit and things of that nature. It doesn't really. It suits me a little bit more, but it's it's one of those things where your mileage may vary. You get some unlockables, and for completing the episode, I could have swore it said I unlocked the figures for Barry and Claire, but I couldn't find them in my figures list. So I don't know where those are at, or do all 4 episodes need to be out for me to unlock those? Not quite sure. But there's concept art you can unlock through both modes, I think. You get the obligatory cinematics unlock. Oh, one of the major criticisms I leveled at the first Revelations game after I completed it was that if you wanted to replay any section of the game, you either had to have multiple saves or you had to play through the entire campaign again. Plus, you could not rewatch cutscenes. This game, thankfully, fixed that issue. You can replay. I mean, granted, like I said, we only got 1 episode so far, but you can replay the episode with. You can pick either starting off from the beginning with Claire and going through the whole episode, or you can pick the Barry scenario, which I thought was cool. I'm glad they put that in there. And you can rewatch the cutscenes. There's a movie viewer, and as you unlock them by going through the story, then you can go back and rewatch them. And if the amount of empty spaces that I have is any indication, there's going to be a lot of cutscenes between the next 3 episodes, because I only unlocked 4 in the first episode, plus 2 preview, like a teaser thing. So 6 altogether. So if there's a teaser for the next one, I'd imagine maybe there's going to be like a recap cutscene, but there's still going to be some pretty heavy story stuff going on, I think, in the next few episodes. They don't really do much to flesh the story out too much in this one. So if you're playing this just for the story, either you're going to have to wait until the rest of the episodes come out to have the blanks filled in, or maybe just wait till all 4 episodes are out and then you can marathon it. See, there's one of the jumpy, jerky kind of animations there I was talking about, where that zombie kind of rubber bands over to the window so he can climb through, or the rotten, I guess. But all in all, I enjoyed the campaign. The raid mode was pretty much what I expected, with just a few little changes that, for the most part, feel pretty good. Like I said, we'll see how the whole weapon parts thing works out as more weapons and perks are unlocked. visually, the game is serviceable. It's a good looking game. I guess I should reword that because it kind of sounds like I'm knocking how it looks. It's not a bad looking game. The game looks good. It's just that compared to what has come before and where we're at with consoles and PCs and stuff, I kind of expected maybe a little bit more. But all in all, the game is it's fine looking. I mean, it's not terrible. Even on what I did see a little bit on the PlayStation 3, it doesn't look completely terrible. Um, it's I would say it's on par with the last couple games that have come out. Uh, Resident Evil 6 maybe looks a hair better, but all in all, it's not like an ugly game by any stretch of the imagination. The environment is a little dull though because there's just not a lot into it, but the lighting and just the way everything is done so far in the environments kind of just gives it that heavy, moody, like you feel kind of claustrophobic, um, and it suits the kind of tense atmosphere that they're going for. Uh, Reminiscent of like those tight corridors in the mansion and stuff like that, which was something that the previous Revelations did well. So all in all, if like I said in my other Revelations video, if they take what's working with these two Revelations games and combine it with what little did work in the main entries of the franchise, mainly Resident Evil 5 and 6, I think they will find their footing again, and the series can be elevated back up into the status that it used to be held in. Um, like I said, I didn't hate Resident Evil 6. It has its issues, but overall I had fun with the game. But they gotta put some work and some effort into something here and really make Resident Evil 7 a game that just blows everything out of the fucking water. Hopefully tone down on the action and kind of go with more of this kind of creepy vibe that they have in these Revelations games, and they should be alright. All in all, so far, this game seems to have that good balance. Like I said, there's a little bit more actiony sequences than I remember in the previous Revelations, but it's not like over the top like it was in Resident Evil 5 and 6. So, in closing, my experience with this game was overall pretty positive. I look forward to the subsequent episodes, and hopefully they keep up on the quality that they are building upon here with this first episode. And like always, guys, I want to thank you all for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. All right, have a good one.